Hello everyone, we're almost at the end of the GamePad Online event. Hope you've enjoyed things so far. So before we sign off, we've got one more in our video game interview series to bring to you. So we've been talking to people from the industry, finding out about their journeys and what they do. And right now, I'm here with our final guest, the Ubisoft community manager, Gehan Amaranayake. Gehan, how are you?
Hey, doing well, doing well. Thanks for having me.
Cool, no problem. Thanks for being with us. So just to remind everyone that you can sort of send your thoughts in the live chat. We also have a Discord up. You can join that. We're going to have an extended edition or version of this interview after the event at some point once I get to editing everything. So everything we see here will be like a short version, and then you'll be able to see the full interview after GamePad Online is done. All right, we're just going to again jump into the questions. So, Gehan, you've worked for Ubisoft for almost 6 years. I see across various departments that have included mobile games lead and, of course, your current position as community manager. So that means you've been the face of the company in a lot of ways, like whether it's online or at like trade shows and events.
Kind of, yeah. It's been a wild ride. It's all different aspects of the CRC, which is our Consumer Relationship Center.
Okay, cool. All right, and then, in fact, before we even get to Ubisoft, what were you doing before you got to the games industry? Like, have you always worked in the games industry, or did you come from a different path?
No, I came from a very, very different path. So growing up, I've loved computer games since a very young age. It's always been a passion of mine. Like I used to run local events down in like the Brighton area for like Tekken and Soul Calibur and things like that. So trying to create a scene there. I also tried to be somewhat of a pro gamer around the 2004, 2005 sort of area, so very fledgling.
You said somewhat of a pro gamer.
I was pretty good, you know. I attended a lot of tournaments. I wasn't like the top tier, like those who may be watching know, like the big names, like your Ryan Harts and your Cobra Commanders, your dinosaurs in the Tekken scene there.
Okay.
I wasn't as good as them, but you know, I was pretty good. You know, I challenged. I placed pretty high, so I tried to be. Try to reach that echelon because I'm very competitive like that. But it got to a point where I was like, okay, I don't know how far I could go doing this. I need to be stable in my life. And initially I started bouncing around a load of different jobs, just acquiring a skill set. I was a waiter in an Italian restaurant. I took over my dad's corner shop newsagent business for a while. I did some freelance graphic designing and artwork for people.
Okay.
But things started to settle in for me around 2009, 2010, when I first had a job at American Express in business travel accounts. So,
wow, that's definitely gaming.
It's very diverse. So
okay.
It was your basic sort of like book balancing sort of work, customer service, helping out like the businesses make sure their travel accounts were balanced and working. Eventually, I got a job working for Apple as a tech advisor. So, and that's when I moved from Brighton to Newcastle. So a couple of years working at Apple. Getting my skills up, learning the tech side of it, and learning how to handle people, like understanding them, getting them the best quality service, the best experience. And I feel that was the big thing that got me my job at Ubisoft, because just over 5 years ago when I started at Ubisoft, they decided to centralize all of their customer support into one hub in Newcastle, rather than having lots of different outsourcers. And one of the big things that we focused on there was, providing a meaningful experience, the best possible support experience, and my background at Apple was a key factor for it. So I started off as a customer support agent. So if you ever made a phone call, an email, a live chat to us, it would potentially get through to me, and we'd give that little bit of extra TLC, that one-to-one service, make sure your issue got resolved in one way or another. While doing that, we saw a growth in our mobile side, and I took the opportunity to become the lead on it. So looking after the customer support for all of our mobile games across the EMEA region, which is, for those who may not know, Europe, Middle East, Africa / Asia. That was an interesting experience, going from just being a support agent to making sure all the support agents were correct, assisting them, trickling down, making sure everyone gets that level of service.
That added responsibility.
Exactly. And the thing about mobile games compared to your standard like PS4, Xbox AAA games is back then there was a lot more microtransactions and stuff with mobile games rather than your your AAA games. And when you're dealing with people's money, it's a lot more sensitive. You can't be leaving them for 3 days without an answer. Even if it's a case of just telling
an hour,
exactly. So we made a very conscious effort to be able to get back to people and say, hey, look, we've seen what you said. We're going to look into it. We'll get back to you as quick as possible at the very least. Eventually, we turned it around whereby people got an answer within 24 hours and still going strong there.
Cool.
But soon after that, I'm the sort of person who is not satisfied where I am. I always want to keep leveling up, growing, getting better, bettering myself. And as great an experience as it was being able to help people on a one-to-one basis, making sure they got their problems resolved, I wanted to help more people on a larger scale. And that's where the opportunity to move into the community management team came in. So I applied for the role, initially starting as what we call a community representative, and eventually moving on to a community manager role, which is where I am at now. Again, regarding what the differences are, I can go into that a bit later or whenever you wish. But yeah, it's been a wild 5.5 years. Wouldn't change it the world, and more to come, hopefully.
Cool. Okay. No, I like to know how people, what route people took to get there. So, I mean,
yeah, I think it's important because, I know there's lots of people who go into game designing, where animation and stuff, and that's the route they look at. And I wish everyone the best of luck, and I'm sure they're going to be very successful. But sometimes you don't get into it the way you initially expect. Sometimes you got to take the scenic route, but you will get there.
Yeah, no, I hear that, and I mean, I did engineering, so it's funny actually. So I worked as a software engineer, and the company I worked for, part of our remit was to develop sort of those call center customer relationship background for cinemas and other places. So when you said some of the calls and then the chat came to you, I know what that looked like a little bit on the back end. So. All right, cool. So then, with your transition from different areas to when you make the decision that you want to go into gaming and find something stable within that, was there any conversation that you had to have with family, and how was that taken when you said I want to work in games?
It's a strange one. Coming from a very how can I put this? A very traditional South Asian background. The ideal job for, according to my parents' generation and above, is when you grow up, you have to be a lawyer, an engineer, a doctor. One of those things. Everything else, then you failed. And I was a little bit of a exactly. But it's one of those things. I was a bit of a black sheep. I was more into my art side of things and technology and gaming and stuff. And it's I'm sure many people have experienced this. Parents say, playing video games isn't going to get you anywhere, and it's pretty funny these days in the world of esports, where at 15 you can maybe be making like 800 grand a month, but at that time it was a completely different thing. It was gaming was very much in its infancy in terms of like mass appeal and like what sort of make a career out of it. But as I said, being like the black sheep of the family, so to speak, I was very stubborn, very headstrong, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to make it my way. So rather than being a lawyer, an engineer, or a doctor, I took a business management degree because I was interested in like people essentially and making a success with people.
Yeah.
And like my parents, they weren't. I wouldn't say they weren't like massively supportive, but they weren't like totally against it and outcasting me, sort of thing.
I mean, that's pretty.
They were
because I've heard worse. Well, way worse.
It's difficult, but it's one of those things where they're like, okay, you know what? It's your life. You do what you feel is best. Go for it, sort of thing. It wasn't like. It's not the sort of encouragement like, you know what, you can do this, go get it, we got your back, sort of thing. But it wasn't the sort of thing. It's on me, and I think it worked for me because I'm the sort of person whereby when the pressure's on me to succeed and do something that I believe in, I work harder for it. So like I said, it's one of the things where for me personally, I felt like, okay, maybe I'm a bit of a failure. I haven't got to where I wanted because I'm just doing, a standard 9-to-5 job. It's not necessarily something in the industry or, the area that I love, but I get to do something that I enjoy. And even throughout that, your standard 9-to-5 job, I was always trying to do something as part of my passions, which is gaming. So whether it be like just having a session at my house with like people, playing lots of games, or trying to host like a local event, like tournaments, so that, people get a competitive feel of things, prizes and stuff, grow a community. That I tried to do that on the side not because I wanted the clout or I wanted like, recognition. I wanted to do something for the people. Like, I wanted to grow something, share my passion with like-minded people. So, and expose it to more people.
Okay. Yeah, no, and
when
go ahead.
Yeah, but when the opportunity to work for a gaming company, even as a customer service advisor, came along, it's like, how can I refuse the chance to do that? It's the goal. Yeah. And then like the sky's the limit. You can go anywhere and everywhere essentially within the industry.
Yeah, and no, I was just going to say that, like, you touched on the idea in terms of like sort of dealing with family and parents, and that coming from a different generation and a different mindset. But I guess ultimately what it's about, and I'm sort of armchair analyzing here, but like stability, because I know those traditional jobs are stable, and you even touched on it like early on about wanting that stability. And I think there's still quite a perception about sort of creative industries or like video games not being stable, but there is a path to stability. Admittedly, it might be a more difficult one, but there is something that you can find yourself towards.
Exactly.
Yeah, it just might require a bit more work. All right, so then community manager, like basically tell us, what does a community manager do? You touched on the difference between like was it community manager and
community representative.
So what are the differences, and what does a community manager do?
So the community team on the whole, in a nutshell, the way I like to present it to people is that we are a bridge. We are your voice. We are the voice of the community, the people, the players to the company, but we're also the company's voice to the people. We are there as like that go-between, someone you can trust, someone that is a part of you, who will make sure your voice is heard and make those changes. At the same time, when information comes from the company, that it's something you can trust and believe in because it's coming from someone that you know. Yeah. That's the community in a nutshell. At Ubisoft, the structure that we have is a little bit different from other places. within our office at the CRC, the Community Relationship Centre in Newcastle, the community management team is divided into essentially what we call community representatives, community managers. Now, community representatives, they are experts in the language or the community of that language. So we have community representatives for Spanish speakers, Italian speakers, Arabic, French, German, Italian, Russian, and Polish at the moment. I think that's our 8, if I remember. EFIG,
Oh, there's a whole
Arabic, Polish, Russian. Yeah, there's 8. Yeah, that's what we have like representatives of. They are experts in that community, that language, those language speakers. Community managers, we are experts in the brand or the games and such.
Right.
So, for example, I'm going to give you this didn't actually ever happen. It's just a hypothetical example of what we would do in this situation. So, let's say, for example, on Rainbow Six Siege, we want to bring out a new French operator, and to promote it, the community manager would say, right, I want a picture of the operator. I want him wearing a beret, a stripy shirt, some garlic around his neck, a baguette, and I want it to say "Vive la Rainbow Six." Let's go, because that'll be something the community appreciate. They like a little bit of fun, a little bit of banter. It'll be good. So, as a brand expert, he would go with that and say, "This is what I want to push." The community representative for France, for example, will say, "Look, the French community may find this very offensive because it's a stereotype. I would advise you do not do this, and you adjust it so that it's more suitable for that audience as well." In which case, that's where the community manager will be like, "Okay, I'm going to take that advice on board, adjust it, and obviously push it up to like brand, marketing, legal, etc. Make sure it's authorized before it's all gone through." So that's how the community manager and the community representative work together. We have to take on board all those different things because we are a worldwide company. Make sure it's suitable for everyone, and that's why, as experts in the brand, we know what the general community feeling is. But when there's some very specific things to do with each region, that's where they come on board and assist and make sure it's suitable.
Okay. And like, is there any advice, like from your own journey, from your like current experiences, that you would give to like a young person and someone aspiring to be in the games industry, as to how you can get there, whether it's, you know, something similar to your role or just the games industry in general?
So, with the games industry, there's a big perception that what you do is you do coding, you do animation, you do design, all that backhand stuff, because historically games have been a case of we create it, we get it out, that's it, it's done, we've got the money, we're done. Nowadays there is a need for a bigger experience post-launch, especially with, for example, on our side, games such as Rainbow Six and The Division, where they've been going on for years and require continued support there. The experience doesn't end when it's released; it continues on. So, it is very important that we do have people that who do the programming, the coding, you know, creating the game. But when that's out, you need people there to be able to support the game afterwards, and that's what we do on the community management side. I, for one, can easily admit that I'm not as smart as all those coders and programmers. I couldn't get my head around that sort of stuff, but I love the gaming industry. I love the people, and I want to be able to help. And this was perfect for me to get into the gaming industry. I may not be able to create those games, but I can help make them better afterwards when it's out, because due to the way games are made, manufactured, even in the past, before there was post-release support, games would have issues with them. Now people can say, "Hey, look, I found this issue, can you fix it?" That's where we come in and say, "Hey, cool, you've given us the information, we're going to try and sort that out as quick as possible for you."
Cool. So yeah, it's kind of like showing that you don't have to be, you know, just technical. There's not only a technical side to games, but you know, you can be non-technical and still help in the support of the games industry.
And it's massive. Like every little thing that you do past the release is just as important because before people are just waiting, but after it's released, if the game doesn't work, you want to make sure it works so that those players, that community, does have the best experience.
Yeah. So then, as a community manager, like you said, you deal with people, sort of the general population, game fans, and I always wonder, like, is there something like the average person, the average gamer, maybe doesn't understand about your role, or assumes something that's not the case, or is there anything like that?
So, what tends to be the case is the average gamer seems to believe, because we're the ones that are responding, we're the ones that fix the game, and we could do it instantly. Unfortunately, that isn't the keyboard,
like right there, like
in the game. I'm literally like, hey, look, this M6, this AK-47 in R6, it's only shooting 20 bullets rather than 24. Yeah. Can you fix it? It's like, yeah, cool. Here, it should be fixed now. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. Because the machine that is Ubisoft, like the sheer amount of cogs that work together to make sure things work, it's not always an instant thing. What we do is because there are so many different departments involved, we collate that information that the community gives us and make sure it's in a format that all these departments understand. Yeah. So, let's take, for example, if there was an issue in Rainbow Six where an AK-47 only shoots 24 bullets rather than 20, or 20 bullets rather than 24. What we do is we would, we collate how many people have said that. We'd pass on to the bug testers that, okay, you can see here, this is not working as it's intended. We got video to show it. There's this many people doing it. We'd then go on to to brand and or marketing, say, hey, look, this is having a big impact on the players in this instance. Yes, they can play the game, but it's impacting their experience. It can impact their financial look at it, because we can say, hey, look, it's impacting the esports scene because, people aren't playing it because there's this sort of bugs. So all those different cogs, we basically filter it so that everyone understands the severity of what the community is saying and how it impacts them as well as the community. So what someone says on a Monday may not get fixed till Friday, or even like 2 weeks down the line, just because of how difficult a situation is, or how complex it is.
Okay, it's just the understanding of the sort of machine that is.
It's like we as community managers, we can't fix things instantly. We completely understand your frustrations because we're in the same boat. We're gamers as well. We look at it and go, God, that's so annoying. But we hear you. I know it seems like a cliche. People often hear it. People often hear it like when they go to customer support or on like Facebook and Twitter. It's like, thank you very much for your feedback. We'll pass it on to the relevant teams and hope to get it resolved as quick as possible. It just feels so but it's the truth. It's one of those things where this is exactly how it works. However, in terms of times and what's going to be done, it's difficult for us to say, not because we don't know. It's more of a case of we don't want to give false promises. Like, we don't want to say, okay, we know this. We're going to get fixed by Friday. Thursday comes and we find like that bug causes 4 other bugs that need to be fixed. It's going to take longer. We don't want to we don't want to lie about it. It's a case like, look, we'd rather just say, we're going to sort of find out. We'll keep you updated. But rest assured, we're looking after it. We want to make sure you have the best experience.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's the tricky position of being in the middle, so you don't have the full control of the process, but then you're speaking to the people that think you do. So I get that.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is that if anyone does tell us that this is happening, it is going to be looked at.
Yeah.
It will be reported, and something will try and be done about it. So. It's when people have issues, it's a case of like, it's not that we ignore them. We want to know them because we know the games aren't perfect, but without their help, we don't know what we need to fix for them.
Yeah.
So if you have an issue, by all means, let us know. It's not that we just respond to all the nice stuff. We really appreciate all the, the constructive stuff as well. So.
Okay. All right. Then on the flip side, is there anything that the game developers misunderstand about the community, or but like vice versa?
It seems it's really hard to discuss, like, for game developers. Like, they understand that that things need to be fixed and stuff. But the sheer amount of detail sometimes they require, like, your average player may not be able to get that. Like, they may say, hey, can we have, like, a view of this happening, like, 360 degrees, taking a video of that happening? It's like, your gamer may not understand that they need to do that. They only see, right, this has happened, I've recorded it, at least they know, sort of thing.
And like, the reason I ask this is because I used to be a developer, and I know the frustration of someone will say, like, this thing isn't working, and you as a developer who has to fix it, like, you need to know, like, exactly what the conditions, what
you need, the hyper specific.
Yeah, but that's like, not what people are.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like exactly where you were.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yeah. What did you do before?
What was your internet connection? Yeah. What route do you take to get there? It's like, a player doesn't often remember. They just saw that happen. It's like, oh, okay. So because of that, like, we understand, like, the developers' needs. So what we try and do is we collate as much of them as possible, as many examples, so that at least they're able to get some sort of understanding that, okay, multiple people had it in this situation, so it must be something in this area or this part, and it must be something to do leading up to this, or something to do with, like, their loadout, things like that. So we try and get quantity with evidence, so that developers have as much information as we can provide from the community. Because there's only depending on the company, what we do is we'll take all of that, we'll send it to our bug testers, who are like, okay, this is all the information we got, let's test it, and then they'd send it to developers, say, hey, look, this is where the bug is. This is what you need to fix. This is how we reproduced it, sort of thing. So it's a case of, like, us trying to reproduce those issues first and then fixing it. And, sometimes it's very minuscule. Someone says, so I turned the corner, on this road, on the division, and then the grass, that puddle went from looking blue to orange. That's a bug. It's like, okay, I don't know how we're going to reproduce that. It may not be possible. And, like, it's not a game-breaking bug, but I understand that, for them, it could break the immersion. They could have color blindness and affecting them. So it's important to them. How important it is to fix, as a priority is a different thing, but it's not that it's not important. We want to know that sort of stuff as well. Just be aware sometimes things like that don't take as much importance as you load up a mission and then it automatically crashes the game. Yeah. That's like, okay, we need to fix that. We want you to play the game.
Yeah, I know. No, I get that. There's definitely, like, there's levels of bugs and.
Exactly.
Cool. Right. So I want to, let's just sort of touch on, sort of, I guess, the state of the world right now, and just seeing a lot of, recently seen, like, sort of the Black Lives Matter protests and response from the video games industry. And, like, for me, I've been asking people about, I guess, diversity in the video games industry, because we saw some of that response in terms of initiatives and stuff. And I guess for you, on the community side of things, like, I guess how have you seen? Because we know diversity has improved, but how have you seen it improve, and what do you think sort of still needs to change for the industry as a whole? I'm not speaking necessarily Ubisoft specifically, but just as an industry. What changes do you think need to be made to improve the diversity of people that are making games, people that are playing games that are made? I know I thought I'd end on a big question. It's a big question for you.
It's a big one.
Yeah.
So I feel I'm very fortunate working at Ubisoft because we are a massively diverse company worldwide, and even in our office, we have so many different languages and people from different countries. I think we worked out there's like out of 220 odd people, we have people from 55 different countries. So we are a melting pot of diversity in that alone. And, not just cultures, like people of, people of different religions, lots of LGBTQ plus advocates and people of that persuasion as well. It's incredible. It's sometimes it's challenging because of culture differences. People may not fully understand each other, but because of it, we understand we are in that situation. We embrace it, we learn from it, and because there's a lot of tolerancy towards it. I can't speak for anywhere else, but like within us, we are very much a case of you get employed because of who you are, what skills you bring. You would be employed because you're the best person for the job, not because you're the friend of like the director or you meet an ethnic diversity quota or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a level playing field for everyone.
All right, so this is my last question, and arguably the most important, at least for me, is why haven't Ubisoft announced a new Splinter Cell game? Is that can we talk to someone about that? Because I've been waiting on that.
So in regards to the new Splinter Cell game from Ubisoft, I would say that honestly, I have no idea. It's one of those things where it's like
no one knows.
No one actually knows. Like even like I'm looking, I'm like,
why?
Splinter Cell's a good game.
Thinking about it,
what was it?
Yeah, why haven't they?
I'm like, why?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like we have so many brands, so many passionate fans.
Yeah.
We want to try and please a lot of them as much as we can. Maybe we'll see some news at the Ubi Forward on July 12th coming up.
Ah, okay.
So
I will be watching.
So that might be something to look forward to. But we got some surprises in store. We got a lot of cool stuff to show in the upcoming months. So
cool.
Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. I think the only other thing is for anyone who is looking to get into the industry and stuff in any capacity, is that in this modern age, your social media is a massive thing. You are your own brand. And I think people need to remember that things that you say and do, it sticks. It's there. It's always there. Even if you delete it, people can always find a way to get it. So, be yourself, but be wary. Like being a community manager, one of the big things is that even when you're off, you're still working. Even when you're off, you're still on. So, I'd clock out at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, but even then, if I'm playing a video game and I'm on voice comms, I'm not going to be that toxic guy. I gotta keep still.
Just switch personas.
Exactly. But if I'm tweeting something, I'm going to be like, okay, do I really want to say this? Because even if it's my personal views, it's going to impact lots of other people.
Okay.
How am I going to word it? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's a difficult concept to grasp. But if you get your mindset around that, when you're saying anything on social medias or publicly, you're not just you're a brand. Think of yourself like Nike or McDonald's or something. What you say is representative of everything.
Yeah.
And you get into that mind state, which makes you think a little bit differently. And in our line of work, especially, it's one of those things where it's people aren't angry at you personally. Why they're angry is because of the situation they're in, 9 times out of 10. So if you can get to the root of that problem, you can turn it around for them. And that's the experience that we want to make sure everyone has.
Cool. No, I think that's a very important thing about social media, and just I think we could all do well to just think before we put things out into the world.
It's one of those things where you wonder, why don't people get any sort of social media training or lessons at school these days? Because it's such a huge thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Cool.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. Well, no, thank you for that. And I'll definitely be watching for any news on Splinter Cell. But when you are back in offices, if you could just talk to someone about that, just on my behalf, very appreciative.
So, in regards to Splinter Cell, thank you very much for your feedback. I will pass it on. I'll pass it on to the correct teams, and we'll keep you updated. Exactly.
That's all I can ask for. That's all I can ask for. Well, Gehan, thank you for joining me. It's been really good to hear about your role and just all the experiences that you've had.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
Cool. So if you enjoyed this interview, let us know. Our email address is gamepad@mayamada.com. We have a Discord that you can join if you have any questions or any, sort of guidance needed on the games industry, or just reactions to this interview. Again, jump in our Discord and you can chat to us there. If you like hearing my voice for extended periods of time, we also have a podcast, Story X Story, where we talk about stories across pop culture, plus do interviews like this with people from the games industry, comic creators, cosplayers as well. You can subscribe to that on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, pretty much wherever you get your podcasts from. So until next time, take care everyone and stay safe.